Hi there, I'm Leah and welcome to the House of Hormones podcast. Today we have the absolutely gorgeous, amazing, inspirational Amy Walsh. Hi,
Oh,
Amy.
you're too kind. You're too kind.
You are inspirational. You're inspirational to me. Anyway.
Am I?
Yeah. You know, there's many reasons why you're so candid and so transparent about so much of your life. And I think the things that you talk about really help a lot of people. So you're inspirational to me for that reason. So let's dig in a little bit. Thank you so much for coming on today.
That's okay.
As you know, we love to talk about women's health with you because you are so honest about your experiences. But let's go back to the start. So growing up, obviously, in a hormone-filled house, I can only imagine. As you know, I grew up with all boys and you grew up in the exact opposite family. So there's 3 girls and 1 boy, your poor brother.
My poor brother.
How do you think that type of upbringing shaped your outlook on women's wellness and womanhood? And
I mean, I don't think you think about it much at the time, but looking back, I guess I've been really lucky to be surrounded by the knowledge of older sisters. I mean, I've always felt grateful to have sisters, and being the baby, I have been kind of mothered by them and my mum. So in terms of like the birds and the bees chat, it was my elder sister Sally that taught me through that. And you know, when I first came on my period, I remember them both sisters teaching me how to use a tampon. I remember that vividly, like that conversation. And it was quite a crazy time when your baby sister goes through that, because that means that everyone's grown up. And obviously we had my brother who just kind of saw everything, and I remember him having to go up to the shop for sanitary products for one of us at one point on his bike because we got caught out, and he just did it and went into the shop at like age 12 or whatever and picked up whatever we needed. So yeah, I mean, I felt very lucky to be surrounded by, obviously, you know, strong women who've kind of guided me in every walk of life, really. I don't really know who I'd be if I didn't have the influence of my siblings and my mom, especially.
that's really interesting because obviously I grew up in a house with 3 brothers and I was the only girl. And so I remember hiding like sanitary towels up my sleeve to leave my bedroom to go to the bathroom. So how
that's totally different. That is a totally different existence, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, my brother did just, I mean, won't think twice, you know, about anything like that. And even now, you know, and having a baby and stuff, I could talk to my brother about all of that, labor, pregnancy, you know, awful things that happen to your body before and after giving birth. And
Should we call
he's
him?
been set up for life for
I
his
know.
relationships to understand women more, for sure.
But this is what I was going to say. So at the House of Hormones, we have a campaign going on at the moment, and it's all about men. And it's all, as you know, as I've explained this to you before, how much we want to include men in the conversation. And we actually think it's so important not to patronize men, because you don't know what you don't know, right? If they don't have periods, then they don't know what it's like. So we shouldn't say to them, oh, you don't understand. Like, we should help them understand. If we taught children from younger ages and normalize this conversation, it would be easier and there would be less stigma attached to all this, right?
Yeah, I think it's really, really hard for men because they just don't understand.
But is there something in that? So, you know, when somebody actually listens, and do you ever notice that that actually makes you feel better already just by kind of having like acknowledgement?
Absolutely, because you're trying to figure it out in your own head of like, what's wrong with me today? Is this a really low mood, or is this something else, or is this tiredness or illness or whatever excuse you can make for your behavior that week or day or whatever. And then you're going, oh, is it my hormones, or is it PCOS symptoms, you know? And I've only really started allowing myself space for that thought recently.
Yeah.
So for then to someone else give you that as well and go, yeah, I can see that this isn't you, this is something bigger, it does help, because it just makes you feel less crazy, doesn't it? I mean, there's that whole stereotype of being crazy lady, but that's how women have been made to feel
Yeah.
because of their
And
hormones.
I totally embrace it now. I think we should claim back those crazy lady words like, I am a psychopath the week before my period. It's fine. What's the problem? As long as, if we all know, cool.
We all know
Like,
to avoid
what's the
you.
big deal?
Yeah.
It's like the acknowledgement and the conversation and the compassion towards the situation does just make it so much better. I don't know why, but it does. And I think it's so hard, and you've hit on such an amazing point there, and I'm so pleased you did. But it's almost like you don't want to be like that. It's not like you're being a certain way because you've chosen to be like this. Your hormones have taken over and they're making you in a bad mood, and it's a catch 22 because it almost makes your mood lower because of your behavior, because you don't want to be like that. So it's very
definitely
tricky.
it's a slippery slope, and there will be times where Toby has to say to me, just take yourself out on a walk, or because it's like you wouldn't usually react to this situation like that, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking it's that you need some TLC, and it's also that timing of putting that time aside for you when you really, really do need it. I mean, like I've only just started really from the House of Hormones and the information I had there, like properly looking into the cycle and the different stages of the cycle, and
Yeah.
you're trying to educate me, and I can't like retain the information annoyingly of which week's my whatever week you call it. I'm so
Luteal, yeah.
luteal, that's the luteal phase. I need to learn that. I was actually literally looking through our messages to find that little thing that
The
you sent
chart,
me,
yeah.
because I think it's really good to just have that on hand, and for men to have that on hand as well, because it's very descriptive and very helpful in kind of understanding those different phases, because it's not just the week before your period. I heard something the other day about polycystic ovaries, and it was very interesting because I think it's for everyone really. It's like not every woman's month is the same. Yes, we have these scientific phases that have been named, but it doesn't mean your behavior is the same as the next person's in that phase. And I feel like mine's quite different to some people. I have quite a lull like post period, and I don't know what that phase is. That's what I was looking for, because I was actually looking on my Flow app yesterday just to see like if I could tell you what my cycle looked like.
Yeah.
And there is a pattern, but I don't know the scientific
So
like
after
description of it.
so after menstruation, so after your period is follicular.
Okay, so what is that meant to look like for a woman, for you typical woman?
Typically, and I'm so pleased. This is why I love chatting with you about this stuff, honestly, because you're so honest about it and you bring up so many interesting and completely amazing points. Even though and the cycle charts that you were talking about, we have them in the free download section for everyone at the House of Hormones, but they're kind of like a standard. But even though that is scientifically what a cycle looks like, every single woman is different. And so you must listen to your own body and not just go with what is typical. But a typical follicular phase, so after your period, would be that's when you kind of get a burst of energy. That's when I'm a fan of intermittent fasting. That's when I would do my intermittent fasting, because I wouldn't suggest doing that in your luteal phase, or when you have your period. But that's when you're kind of, the norm is to get like a boost in your mood, or that type of thing. But it's really interesting because I was recording with Dr. Ravina, and we were talking about libido and how in the there's a certain phase, so like the ovulation phase might be when you would have an increased libido, but actually other people have mentioned that they get an increased libido immediately after their period. And so
Interesting.
we were talking, the conversation was actually about fertility. And so that's why she says, look, people put it down to this little window for ovulation. And actually, she advises that you need to be having it, which sounds like fun, but also sounds like a bit of a chore. If you're a baby, you need to be having sex every 2 to 3 days, even during your period. She said you can absolutely get pregnant during your period. So
Wow.
it just goes to show you, back to your point, how different everyone's cycle is, and how, you know, for you, you might find that that's actually when your body, you do have a bit of a lull and you don't get this burst of energy, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's about listening to your body, listening to your cycle.
I feel like my burst of energy comes after ovulation period. But there's a week after my period, or a few days that's just before ovulation, that I've seen on my app, where that's where my very low mood, low energy, foggy head, kind of you know, depressive moods come in around that time. And then there's a period of ovulation where I feel quite okay, and then I feel like I've got the energy to like take on the world just after that. It's really weird. So yeah, it just goes to show that everyone is so different, and you've got to find out what works for you. It's the same. I was listening to something about vitamins and supplements the other day, and it's don't just take X, Y, and Z because, you know, so and so does, and they rave, like, you know, they rave about it. You have to take the supplements that you need for your body and mind, and you need to figure that out. That's a real journey, and that's something that I'm on at the moment, kind of trying to figure out what I actually need. And a few years ago I did go to a doctor that's kind of a more holistic, he was a doctor and now he's a more holistic practitioner. He did my bloods then, and it was the first time after seeing him where he put me on very specific vitamins and minerals that I need, and a lot of the natural, that I started to feel normal. And before that, I thought I had something seriously wrong with me. I'd been to the doctors, got blood tests, they said they were fine. I cried on the phone when they said they were fine, because I was like, but I don't feel fine. Like, how can this be normal? And then I went to him and he was like, your calcium's low, your magnesium's low, your hemoglobin's low. It might not flag up on a doctor's report, you know, your GP, but I can see that all these contributing factors are leading to how you feel right now. And that's a very privileged position to be in, to be able to visit a private doctor for private blood tests. But I think if you're on that journey of figuring out what you need personally, it might be something to invest in. That would be kind of where I'm at right now.
This podcast is sponsored by Philip Kingsley. Philip Kingsley trichologists are the leading authority on hair and scalp health. Their world-renowned clinics offer trichological consultations, treatments, and prescription products to treat hair loss, scalp conditions, and hair condition. Their services are available either in person at their clinics in London and New York, virtually via online consultation, and via their hair loss and scalp subscription service. If you're worried about hair loss, take the Philip Kingsley online hair loss assessment and get 20% off when you subscribe to a treatment plan, or book a virtual consultation now at a limited time price. And if you're just in need of great hair and scalp care, use code HOUSE20 for 20% off. Visit www.philipkingsley.co.uk/House of Hormones for full details. And I think this is why you're here today, isn't it, really? Because you want to help so many different women, and you understand that not all women, I mean, what you said there was you cried on the phone when they told you were fine. Think of how frustrating. I hear this honestly about 3 times a day. I hear women tell me different stories. I was speaking at an event last week and I had 2 different women come up and cry to me afterwards. And women just feel so gaslit because they go for blood tests and all they hear is, Yeah, it's normal. And they're like, but I don't feel normal. I
Yeah.
don't feel like myself. I don't feel okay. They know something's wrong. And it's such a lonely place and such a hard place for so many women. And you know, that's why, like I said, I'm so inspired by you, because not only will you talk about this so openly, but you are doing the work to try and find out your nutrition and exercise and sleep are the most important things. And luckily for you, and you're gonna love this little switch that I'm gonna do, luckily for you, your nutrition's so amazing because you're such a good cook. And
Great segue, great segue.
thank you.
Well, I
Thank
mean, I
you.
wouldn't claim my nutrition is amazing. You know,
But it is. No,
I
you
love
are.
food and I love treats, and you know, I'm the first person to order a takeaway on Friday night. Like, let's put that to bed because I love my food. However, I would say, and it's a funny one because we've spoken about this before, but my whole life having polycystic ovaries has meant that I've kind of been on a fad diet in one way or another, and I have been slimmer than I am now. Have I been healthier? No. And that's something that I hold on to now because I fuel my body in a different way now, and I'm really glad that I've kind of cut that tie with really unhealthy relationship with diet, really, and food. And I love good tasting food, and a lot of that is really healthy, thankfully. So yeah, I am into cooking. Obviously, I've always cooked and made nice meals for myself, and now it's just about education as well, because you know this we're born from a generation of calorie counters and slimming groups telling us that a certain amount of calories is bad and XYZ. And I just think now it takes quite a lot to fight away from that's been embedded into you. I've said to you before, I think we said it on that live, that, as a young teenager, I would see someone eating a banana and I would think, why would you eat a banana for 86 calories when you could have a packet of quavers? I remember watching my dance teacher do that in front of me as a snack. How ridiculous is that? I mean, how unhealthy
Wow.
is that? And I just thought, I don't know why the quavers thing came into mind. Maybe I had some and I was eating them and I was like, well, I'd rather be eating these for 86 calories or not. But I would never think like that now, ever, ever, ever. And that comes with age, doesn't it? And growth and maturity. But equally, like being really tired all the time, you have to feel your body. Like when you've got a 3-year-old, when you're working, when you're juggling a busy life, like I've realized now that you have to feel your body. And interestingly, I have really taken more notice of diet with hormones recently. It's just something that I'm kind of playing with and trying to discover kind of how nutrients in food changes my mood and cycle. And I really worked hard it's January, isn't it? Like we were all doing it, and it took me about 2 weeks to kick into it, but by mid-Jan I was like, I really, really want to sort my gut health out, just start feeling better. Like there was a period after Christmas where I was like, I feel awful every day. And then I thought, is it because I've not really been eating any fruit and veg? Like apart from the Christmas dinner,
Yeah.
everything else was, lovely, and bits of salad here and there and bits of whatever else, but a lot of cheese, a lot of wine, a lot of meat, heavy red meat. And I really believe that it was because after a
Yeah.
week of just eating cleaner and really packing those meals with fiber, which is the new thing that I'm kind of figuring out, and protein, I felt instantly better. There was one day actually that I did go and did a class that I really enjoyed. And I was on the phone to my mum. I was driving somewhere later on that afternoon, and I was like, I feel horrendous today. Like I've just got that post-workout slump, and I feel how I always used to feel when I was working out like that 5 or 6 times a week. And my mum said, I wish you didn't have to do those workouts that make you feel like this. There's got to be something else that you could do so you don't feel like this. And then later on that week, I was watching a seminar about polycystic ovaries. and how those kind of really hard hitting workouts can impact our insulin levels, something
Yeah.
I've never really considered. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've been doing my body. I cried on that as well, on that call, because I was like, really felt seen, really felt like this isn't in my head. I've always had this thing since being diagnosed with polycystic ovaries that I would not use it as an excuse. So I've never gone, yeah, I struggle to lose weight. It's because I've got polycystic ovaries. I go, it's because I'm greedy, you know? And there's part of that's true. But there's another part that on this seminar that I was watching described what was happening to my body compared to maybe my friend who might eat the exact same thing, and how I, digest that insulin. And I mean, I don't understand the science, so don't quote me, but the sugar and all that, and it is like I have a full-on sugar slump, and I need, like, you were with me a lot around that time, like I would literally feel like I needed a jelly baby just to keep me awake for the rest of the day, and it'd be like 4 p.m. and I wouldn't understand why. And I think I was just almost abusing my body in the sense of that level of high impact, too much exercise without the fuel. I would do starved workouts all the time, go out for runs, having not eaten any carbs since lunchtime the day before. Yes, I was thinner, but I felt horrendous.
Yeah.
And I wasn't having regular periods then, and I am now.
I think as well with the workouts and doing a workout that's pretty stressful, what people don't realize is you can raise your cortisol levels. And I think a lot
that's what I was trying to describe. Yeah.
The great thing about you, and I know you did your disclaimer of I'm the first person to get a takeaway on a Friday night, and but isn't it about balance? So although, like, how much I love chocolate, right? So I am the first person to talk about nutrition and talk about, maybe seed cycling and all these different things. And
what's that?
Seed cycling. So where you take different seeds at different parts of your cycle. I'm sure I've sent you this. We have a post. We have a cheat sheet on seed cycling. So exactly what you just described. I thought that's what you were doing in January when you were talking about it.
Well, I added loads of seeds to all my foods, and I added loads of fermented foods, and all that, because I was thinking about my gut health. Kimchi. Kimchi, kefir yogurt, kefir like smoothie shake thing, loads of seeds and loads of ground seeds as well.
It's like, I think people need to focus more on what they need to put into their diet. So let's start there. Don't worry about what you need to take out of your diet. You can worry about that afterwards. But I think for hormonal balance and mental health, gut health, everything that you've discussed, if we can focus on what you need to put in to your diet, which was massive for me. This was massive. As you know, I'm not a great eater of meals. I am like a snacker. I would just eat. I would have honestly just eaten chocolate. Like I would have eaten. You've witnessed that. I would have eaten chocolate and not eaten anything else in the day. And now thinking about it, like that is just like it's almost self-harm. Do you know what I mean? When we know what we know now.
Well, I used to see you do that and think, but she's thin, so I could just do that. Like to be thin. But imagine if I'd have done that, like, because you did kind of replace chocolate for meals because you'd rather, get that sugar rush and carry you through the day. And I've seen women, thin people do that, in the past and gone, well, I could do that. I mean, I don't love chocolate, but I enjoy it enough to do that. But I genuinely would miss the nutritious food. Like I do, me, like whatever I have on my plate, I'll add a salad or some greens, not to be good, but because I really enjoy that balance of flavors and textures.
Yeah, I was going to say, or a condiment.
Oh, and like several condiments, but that's my downfall. That your vice is chocolate, my vice is mayo.
I have never, honestly, I have never ever had dinner with anybody. I've never eaten with anybody in this whole world that loves a condiment more than you. Never.
Bless Toby the other day, he brought me in my dinner. We'd had a long day and we were just eating dinner on the couch, and he brought me it in. It was a burrito salad. And then on the side, he'd put every single condiment that we own from the fridge. Literally, as in a dollop of each one on the plate. And I was like, you are my
I just,
guy. It was like, well, I need to start asking for them from the fridge.
but you know what? But there's something. So we're putting together at the moment like a men's toolkit, and maybe we should speak to Toby, get him on the podcast, and talk to him about this, because we want men to be able to take our situation, listen to us, but then they need to react in what way is comfortable for them. And for him, maybe he can show up by making you food in a certain phase when he knows that you need food, or maybe that's like your love language.
Yeah, but we've got to that point, I think, which is really lucky, that he does know what I need kind of when I need it. I mean, if I'm really grumpy, he will be like, come on, let's have some food.
Yeah, and and when and when he
Oh,
said, but you said earlier as well, he'll be like, "Go for a walk." Now, let's take that out of context, because you can see how that could start so many arguments in a relationship. Because some
mm,
women could feel like, in the wrong context, that could be like gaslighting, or like it could be said with anger. But actually, if you
no,
explain to your
it's
partner and you
no love.
educate,
Yeah,
and it's coming from a loving place, and they're saying, "Do you know what? Maybe you should go for a walk." That's so lovely and so helpful, and it would be
yeah,
received so well. But I think people need to get to that point. So where you're saying you're at that point, we need to kind of help people know how to educate men, and then allow men the space to show up in their own way. Like, how can they tailor that? Like Nick, for example, my husband, he is obsessed with ultra processed food, and he's obsessed with food. So he was very good at saying to me, I'm going to make you this for dinner tonight and include this. And that really helped me. Um,
yeah.
you've had such a varied career. Have you ever had any storylines that have made you look more into different aspects of women's health?
Well, obviously, the obvious one that I can think of is a postnatal depression storyline, as Tracy in Emmerdale a few years ago. I was actually pregnant at the time as well, playing that out. Um, it's not really a hormone related thing, but it's a mental health thing that was a very interesting journey for me and Toby, talking about the men, because him watching my storyline play out on telly made him understand postnatal depression that
Yeah.
he had no idea about. And it's just quite an interesting one, because if we can do it with that, we can do it with the menopause, we can do it with other hormone related issues, syndromes, whatever you call them. I don't know how much menopause has been touched on, and so like it's an interesting one, and I'd be interested to see a storyline play out like that. I don't know how I don't know how producers would think that would, I don't know how interesting producers would think that would be, but why not
I
tell
can,
that story?
I can see the headlines now when this podcast goes out. Amy Walsh claims producers need to give her a storyline on menopause.
Well, I mean, we can pitch. Maybe I'll pitch it.
Yeah,
Do you know? Yeah, I mean, there's so many stories to tell. That's why I think that's still just such an important like genre of drama, because we have that platform, and
yeah,
it helps so many people, all the various different stories. But yeah, so the postnatal depression one for me, for sure, kind of gave me an insight into how that can manifest other than the typical way that we know it to be. So it was very much about reminding people that postnatal depression just does not just mean that you don't have an attachment with the child, or that you want to harm a baby, or anything like that. Like, my character's storyline was way different to that. It was actually she loved the baby so much that she was scared she couldn't look after it. But how it played out within the relationship was what was interesting for Toby and viewers, because they actually like took sympathy with my partner Nate in the show, and Toby did too. Like, he was like, God, she's just awful to him all the time, isn't she? And I was like, yeah, because she's in pain.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's so interesting to watch that, because I'm learning that behavior means that, as opposed to they hate the man. Like, it's
Yeah.
nothing to do with
Yeah.
hating the man. It's their pain that they're in or what they're going through. And yeah, we've talked about that a lot since as a couple, and I really hope that other couples are doing the same.
This podcast is sponsored by Philip Kingsley. Philip Kingsley trichologists are the leading authority on hair and scalp health. Their world-renowned clinics offer trichological consultations, treatments, and prescription products to treat hair loss, scalp conditions, and hair condition. Their services are available either in person at their clinics in London and New York, virtually via online consultation, and via their hair loss and scalp subscription service. If you're worried about hair loss, take the Philip Kingsley online hair loss assessment and get 20% off when you subscribe to a treatment plan, or book a virtual consultation now at a limited time price. And if you're just in need of great hair and scalp care, use code HOUSE20 for 20% off. Visit www.philipkingsley.co.uk/House of Hormones for full details. I guess that, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here, and whilst all of these topics are very different, you know, we've touched on PCOS, we've touched on perimenopause, we've touched on postnatal depression, but a lot of the things kind of are linked when we talk about the emotional side of it. So, you know, where you were just saying there, but she's coming from a place of hurt and pain. And so that behavior might display itself that she's angry or annoyed with the man, but that's not really what's going on. And a lot of the emotional side is all tied in to be so similar, isn't it, really, when you think about it?
Because it's hormones. I mean, it's hormones. I mean, that was obviously, you know, a mental illness as a separate thing. But post baby, those hormones are all over the place, and that is why, you know, you behave so differently to kind of what you might usually be. And that's why it's really hard for men, which is a separate side note subject, but obviously, you know, Toby and I have been making a film recently about postnatal depression in men. It's a knock-on effect, because the woman struggling so much and is so different. I said this to some friends the other day at a party. I don't think men understand how, or before they have a baby, that once that baby arrives, that partner, wife, girlfriend, whoever it is that's having that baby, will never be the same again. And it's not to like scare people, it's to just accept, like, she is reborn. When that baby's born, she is reborn into something else. And if you're expecting the same person to come home, and, you know, or once the hormones have died down, the same person to exist, it's different. She's amazing. She's a warrior. She's a completely different person. But I think what's so hard for men is that, you know, a lot of them just miss the woman that they had before. And it's not to say that the woman changes it in any negative way necessarily. She's just got, like, this is just my opinion, but like a whole other world of life experience to do now, as does the man, in terms of caring for the baby. But I just mean something so much deeper than that, isn't it? Like, you just never be the same again, in my opinion.
I love the way you've explained that. I think so many people will resonate with that, and I think honestly that will make sense to so many different people. I think for women there's so many different chapters, so I think it all kicks off with puberty, which we will have to deal with again with little Bonnie and my daughter Darcy. And then you know, you're right, you do have the new chapter of motherhood and how much that changes you. And then, you know, as you know, I talk a lot about the new chapter of perimenopause and the big change that happens there. If we can just touch quickly on your struggles with PCOS, I mean, we have talked about it here, but if you could give anybody tips, and also like when you were, before you were diagnosed, what were your first signs? And I know you were quite dismissive of your symptoms at first, but what's your kind of advice for people in the early days?
Just for context, you know, until I was about 20, didn't know I had it. I don't know when it developed, actually. And the more research I'm doing, the more I realise that it could have developed like from being on the pill. I was on the pill from a very young age because I had back acne. So I was put on the pill from about 15.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise that polycystic ovaries, there is a type of polycystic ovaries that can be post-pill induced. So that's got me thinking, but who knows? Anyway, obviously didn't know it would be related, the back acne was related to polycystic ovaries. It may or may not have been, it may have been a hormonal thing. It may have been a genetic thing. My mum had that as a teenager. I'm not sure, but they put me on the pill, and then when I was about 20, I came off the pill purely accidental. I just ran out, and it was when I was away at uni, and I not got a doctor's there, and I just came off it for a few months and didn't have a period, and that's when I spoke to the doctor, and again didn't think anything of it. Just thought, oh, I've been on the pill that long, you know, my period cycle hasn't gone back to normal.
Yeah.
And they quite rapidly got me tested, sent me for blood tests, which showed high levels of testosterone, sent me for an internal examination, which showed up cysts on the ovaries. They call them cysts. They're not actually cysts. It's very confusing, but let's call them cysts. And from that, I think you need like one of the 4 or 5 main symptoms, correct me if I'm wrong, to be diagnosed with it. And obviously I had 2 because I had the high levels of testosterone, which is the insulin thing, I think, and the cysts. So yeah, that's when I was diagnosed. And obviously, again, everything you read about polycystic ovaries and all the research I've done recently has been about fertility, and literally this affects your fertility, and that's all I thought I needed to worry about, really. Obviously the other symptoms, I'd always struggled with my weight. I'd been an overweight child. I'd been to the doctors about that as a kid because I was genuinely, you know, overweight unhealthily. They weren't too concerned, but I was very aware of it from a very young age. And, you know, I was a big baby, and then I just got bigger, bless me. I was like 10 pounds 3 when I was born. And then I was the youngest of 4, so I was eating meals probably too old for me, or too bigger portions or whatever. Anyway, that resulted in a bit of childhood obesity. And then I got into the crash diets, didn't I? So then I did manage to lose the weight on crash diets and things. And at about age 13, I remember I lost loads of weight through, you know, I mean, I can't say whether or not I was being healthy then, but I think I was not eating the right things and enough of the right things, but I managed to. Yeah, so that was me. And then at 20, I was diagnosed, and all it really affected was my mental health in terms of what does this mean fertility wise. I noticed then, actually, and again, it's something I've only realised in hindsight, because I didn't do loads of research. It was like something I didn't want to tap into. I remember a girl at drama school giving me a leaflet that she'd found about it, or a cutout of a newspaper article. And I remember that saying specifically, don't eat food heated up in plastic containers, especially black plastic. And you know me, I'm a bit of a, I can't be bothered with that. And at the time I was like, you know, I ignored it. It's the same way, like I did a York test a few years ago to see what I was allergic to. Cow's milk came up, and I just decided to ignore the fact that came up because I really like milk in my coffee.
She's our own woman, ladies and gentlemen.
Honestly, I don't listen to anything I say because I'm an idiot. But
I,
then
it does, it makes me laugh because I'll tell you things, regarding like hormones or things like that, and I'll tell you and you'll go, okay, yeah, 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 and then you'll come back to me like a month later and be like, do you know what I've started doing? And then you'll tell, and
I
I'll be like,
forget. Yeah,
listen,
my
she don't
memory is
listen to me,
terrible.
but she'll listen to somebody else, or you'll tell me such and such told me, and I'll be like, I didn't tell you that 6 years ago.
Yeah, I do, because I think I just was in that era of pretending it wasn't happening to me.
Yeah.
Um, they put me back on the pill at that point, so my periods were kind of regular because of the pill. My hair thinned around that point, and I never put it down to polycystic ovaries. Like, I literally never did. And I remember my mum going, "You always had such thick hair. I don't understand." And by the way, this hair's not all mine. It's just to make you aware.
Your
I
hair
do
looks
have
beautiful.
naturally thin hair. But it definitely got thinner around that time. I remember it was when I was at drama school and I was very stressed. I was very tired. I wasn't looking after myself. I was drinking a lot of the weekends. I was eating a lot of processed food. I did used to make myself, home cooked meals a lot of the time, but I didn't eat well then. You've got no
Yeah.
money. You like, and then, and I was really stressed, and yeah, put on quite a bit of weight because of the drinking and eating. And yeah, so that was in my 20s, and then I was just always worried about the fertility thing, and I didn't know how that would be until the moment I fell pregnant with Bonnie. Like, I was
Wow.
absolutely petrified that, every boyfriend I would get with that was semi-serious, not even, full on, I would mention the fact that I might not be able to have children. Like, that's how much I convinced myself of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then after that, like, I suppose now we're talking like 10 years ago, I was always still on the pill, but there was another time that I'd come off it for whatever reason, and I didn't have a period for about 6 months, and I had two periods within a year, and I thought, gosh, this is a bad state of affairs. Like, my body's not okay. But at that point, there wasn't. This is why I love the house performance. There wasn't the information out there. I
Yeah.
wasn't even on Instagram then. Like, I'm sure there would have been if I'd have taken myself off to a library or whatever, but and there was certainly the internet, I know that, but I wasn't actively searching for a way to help this syndrome.
But
And
so, and you said this before, do you think, so maybe the information was there, but it maybe wasn't in a way that's easy to consume for people, for women, and for women of a certain age. A lot of these things to start looking up, it's very scary, and so it's very triggering, and it's very, so to go and seek out this information can be intimidating, and that's what the House of Hormones tries to do. We try and give people education, but kind of in a fun, more relatable way, where it's not so intimidating and it doesn't feel so taboo, and it's not going to trigger people.
yeah, totally. I think one thing to say is, I might be wrong, but I remember the doctors and the diagnosis being very much like, this is just something that 1 in 4 women get. I think that was the statistic then. Maybe it's more now. In fact, they can't really gauge it now because there's so many different variants of the type of polycystic ovaries you can get, I think. But anyway, 1 in 4 women have it. People have gone on to have children. You kind of Google famous people that have it and go, okay, phew, Victoria Beckham's got it. She's got 4 kids. But then it's crazy because you go, well, she's thin, so I can't use that as an excuse for being overweight. And there was a girl at my drama school who was thin who had it, and I was like, oh, okay, so you've got it. But she had, and like Victoria Beckham, I think, has been open about struggling with acne and skin conditions and stuff, and she had that and I didn't have that. And I've met other people that have like the excess hair thing, and I've not had that, and I feel really grateful for that, obviously. And the symptoms are scary. Like, even just being told in a blood test that you have high levels of testosterone is a bit of a shameful thing. And that sounds ridiculous, and I'm not ashamed of it now, clearly. But as a late teens, early 20s, literally starting out in life, to know that fact about yourself, it's weird. Because it's got manly connotations, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
I was going to say, can we zoom into that? Why? So yeah, the connotations are that testosterone is manly. So why would you be ashamed of that? Because you're
Because
just like,
then,
oh,
because it's the symptoms are obviously thinning of hair, losing hair around the parting area, which is obviously a man thing. Men bald because of their hormonal drops at a certain age, and excess hair in places you don't want it. Obviously, that's not attractive to anyone when you're a single 20 something, um, and just that connotation of testosterone being a manly thing. I know we all have it, but for it
do
to be
you know?
high.
So do you know? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot here. It's actually a good thing, right? But do you know what the symptoms in perimenopause of low testosterone are? Do you know what they are?
No.
Out of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, a woman's body, testosterone is the biggest hormone that we make. So we make the most of testosterone, right? It's just that we have less of it than men. But in our bodies, we produce
Right.
most testosterone of all the. Sorry, I haven't explained that very well. But low testosterone in perimenopause, which is very, 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 very common, and it's even on HRT, it still is not prescribed on HRT. So you can only get estrogen and progesterone. You cannot get to testosterone. And they actually do not have an approved testosterone for women. So women have to use the men's testosterone. So this is how far behind, I know, this is how far behind the research is. However, the symptoms of low testosterone are things like low libido, really not feeling like yourself, like just, low life value, all those things. So basically not wanting sex. So if you had high testosterone.
Well, I don't know about myself in my 20s, but post baby, it's a different matter altogether, let's just say.
But my point is, like, when you get so now I'm 40 years old. I'm a 40-year-old woman.
We love that, don't you?
I absolutely love being a 40-year-old woman. But it's a serious issue for people where their testosterone levels are dipping, and actually you can't get doctors to look into it or get help with that and get prescribed testosterone. So actually, do you know what I mean? I'm just saying where you might have felt ashamed for that. If you understood the amazing stuff that testosterone does for a female's body, and that it's so important it's a really important hormone for us. And so it's such a shame that
as a 20-something
person,
I know, and that's just getting information out there, isn't it? And that was just a silly thing that I had. I'm not saying that everyone would, feel like that.
I think you're right. I think that most people do think like that, and that's why I wanted to home in on it, because I think it's going to help other people who do feel like that. And there's a whole thing like hair in places you don't want it. Everyone talks about hair on their chin and, that type of thing. And I think it's always just related with negative connotations. I think you've hit the nail on the head. And I think that will help so many people to know we shouldn't be looking at testosterone in that light. And it's a shame that you did and you had to. From what you're saying, PCOS has really impacted your view on your body, do you still suffer with that and your mental health?
Yeah, I again, from doing some research recently, read a statistic that I think this was the bit that made me get a bit upset, actually, because it was side effects or symptoms of polycystic ovaries, along with the obviously very physical things, but mentally, depression, low self-esteem, body dysmorphia, and all those things like hit a nerve with me, because obviously I have always struggled with that in terms of my appearance, and I think I've never put it like I just seen it on paper that that's also kind of a side effect of having polycystic ovaries, low mood, depression and stuff. Like, it just makes you go, oh my God, I just felt seen. I just felt like, oh, I can kind of use this actually to myself. I don't need
making me
to
well
use I don't need to use the term polycystic ovaries to anyone else to justify anything about myself, and that's something that's come with age. you know, it really has actually. Because I don't walk around work going, yeah, I'm struggling to lose weight too, but I've got polycystic ovaries. So obviously, because I know it can be done. And I think it's, you know, it can be done. It's just harder for me sometimes or whatever. But I, in terms of, yeah, in terms of just it being a harder journey in general and accepting that. And there was something, like just looking next to the person next to you and comparing yourself, that's something I've always done, and
Yeah.
so crazy. But at a time that I was really low self-esteem in my life, which you know all too well of, I would be in a gym class or a yoga class and I would look in the mirror at the other people and go, "Oh, even though I'm this way, I'm still the fattest person in this room. That's so annoying." And, you know, I've not even had any children. They've had children. And, you know, I'd kind of give myself a comfortable story of, yeah, but, you know, their lives might be easier. They might not have such a chaotic life. They might not have just been on tour. They might, you know, whatever. And then counteract it with another reason, not like to feel bad about myself, basically. And then I did that post baby, and I did it like I gave myself a bit of a, you've just had a baby. Yes, you're the fattest person in this room, but you've just had a baby. I do it now still. Like I don't do it in the gym, and I really don't. But you still do it in the sense of, I don't know. It's a deeper conversation, really. But that being self-critical, but also comparing yourself, like, you know, why was I not going, but you've got polycystic ovaries, give yourself a break, you're in a gym class. And why was I not being that kind person to myself that I should have been?
Anyone that's watching this, honestly, like it's really difficult when it comes to mental health, because anyone that's listening or watching this will be looking at you going, what? You are absolutely beautiful. You always have been. Do you know what I mean? Like you're such an amazing person. You're such an amazing mom. You're just so beautiful and gorgeous. And so many people would look at you, and like where you talked about, it made me laugh when you said like, oh, Victoria Beckham, and then that's what people think of you. But and I've always tried to explain this to you, like, how do you not know how beautiful you are? And so is your friend, and I imagine Toby is your partner, and I imagine your sisters and your brother and your mum, you know, and anyone that has somebody in their life that maybe struggles with body dysmorphia or you know, mental health and these things. It's so frustrating, isn't it? Because it's like, I just wish you could see yourself. Like I wish you could see how I view you. Do you know
I
what
know,
I mean?
I know, and I kind of wish that too sometimes. And Toby says that a lot, and I'm really trying. And I've got a daughter now, and it's really important, like, you know, to not put any of that on her. I don't ever want her to hear me say anything like that about myself. And I am really trying. Um, and you know, one of my friends took a picture of me on holiday a few years ago, and it was a time I was really low in terms of self-esteem. And we were on a holiday with my sisters and our two friends who were all, you know, gorgeous, really gorgeous. And I just didn't feel that. And I'd been really unkind to myself about, you know, I'd kind of lost weight for this holiday, but I'd had a hen do the weekend before, and I was really unkind to myself for letting go on the hen do because I now felt awful in a bikini and da 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 da. And a friend of mine, I was sunbathing by the pool, took a picture of it, and said, I took this earlier to show you how good you look, because like, and I'm not
Mm.
said to them I look fat, I
Yeah.
feel fat, but she sensed it, and I must have said a couple of things, but she was like, I wanted you to see how gorgeous you look by the pool. And
Oh,
I mean, at the time I was like, oh God, delete it, it's awful. Well, now I'm like,
my just
as a freaking
screensaver.
supermodel compared to what I look like now in a bikini. And I found it the other day, and that picture, you know, we all do this, and I do it especially. I mean, Toby's literally like, I knew you were going to say that. Look how thin I was. Look how thin I was. When my whole life I've thought I was fat. But I found that the other day and I was like, I'm so glad I've got that picture, because I never take pictures in a bikini ever. There's no pictures of me, thin, fat or otherwise, in a bikini. And I'm so glad I've got that for a reference point of, not because I looked thin that day, but because I know where my head was at that day and what I
Yeah.
thought I looked like. And that's thanks to that friend. And I will cherish that picture, because you need to hold on to the fact that it's all in your head. I do struggle with keeping that positivity and kind of that much healthier mindset when I personally feel like I've kind of let go a bit of Christmas, or put on a few pounds. That's
Yeah.
when those thoughts start creeping in. And one thing I will say with regards to the cycle and our hormones and what we're here to talk about is that 1 week of the cycle that I was referring to earlier, and often for people it would be pre-period for them because they've got the blow and they feel exhausted and they're whatever and they're about to bleed. I've noticeably seen through the app and just through like pinpoints of times in the year that's just passed, this cycle of a few days after I've stopped, or a day or two after I've stopped bleeding, that kind of depression mood. And I say depression, I'm not depressed. I'm a really happy person at the moment. I am so grateful for the life I lead. And literally, I'll talk about it. So New Year's Eve, we all had a chat and we were at a party at my sister's, and we all went round and said, what do we want to achieve this year? Da, 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 da. And I just remember feeling this utter gratitude of, I absolutely love my life. I am so lucky. I love my job. I love my husband. I love my little girl. And I'm so lucky to have all my family and friends around me. And really, that's all that matters. So always, always my New Year's resolution from being 10 would be to lose weight. I need to lose weight. I need to lose weight. And I've stopped doing that now because whatever, like as if that's important,
Yeah.
Of course it is, because I want to be healthier and I want to manage the polycystic ovary symptoms, and I know that's a way of managing it, and I know I need to do that now. I'm at a point where I do have some weight to lose, and I'll try and lose it now in the next few months. But I felt that positive is the point to this story on New Year's Eve, right? I came
Yeah.
on, we're going to talk about cycles, on New Year's Day. So in that period where most people would get that weird feeling, I felt that positive. 5 days after that, and it might have been circumstantial because of, the January blues and everything else, I came home after Christmas and I had one day, and that's all it ever is really, of feeling so overwhelmed, so exhausted, so clouded vision, so overfaced by everything, and genuinely like felt this depression about life.
Yeah.
And Toby thankfully was like, but 3 or 4 days ago you were telling, no, in fact yesterday on the car journey up you were saying how happy you are,
Yeah.
and how glad and how happy you are to go back to our lovely little life, and
Yeah.
how excited you are to go back to work, and how lucky you feel to feel excited when everyone else is kind of dreading it, and all these things. And it took him to go, babe, this is your hormones, because you didn't feel like this yesterday.
Aww.
And you do this once a month, and we've finally figured that out. And that's a long-winded way of telling people that, yeah, like acknowledge that it's not you. It's like when people say, don't say you have anxiety, say you're anxious about something. It's like
Yes.
it doesn't define you. But
Yes.
that one day, don't go to the gym and thrash it out if that's not what's going to make you feel good. Or don't start a diet that day. And also, don't try and tackle the whole house of coming back from Christmas, finding a place for every single one of Bonnie's new toys, changing all the beds, doing this and this, taking the decorations up. Just don't do it that day. That's what I need to learn. Just
Yeah.
take a
Yeah.
moment and go, this isn't the time, because in a couple of days, you'll have so much energy. You'll be lifting 80 kg at the gym, baby girl.
That's it. That's it.
I'm genuinely like the week after, like, you know, around ovulation, but that week after ovulation, I'm like, I'm on fire. I could do 3 classes at the gym today. So it's a journey, and I genuinely, like, not to blow your trumpet, but this is a journey I've started since discovering, you know, your new company, the House of Hormones. Really, it's a journey I'm going on, a very recent journey of having the time and the headspace to think about me. And, you know, one of my New Year's resolutions a few years ago was to be kinder to myself, mentally and physically. And unfortunately, what happens when I'm kinder to myself is I put on weight, because I'm like, I'm gonna have that whatever. I'm not gonna deprive myself of that, you know. Right, like, honestly, stupid example. Me and my girlfriends from college, we've known each other since we were 15, have always gone to Nando's. You know, there are other chicken shops available, but no, we've always gone to Nando's. That's our thing. We did it as students, and now we do it as, like, you know, mums. We don't go for fancy meals. We go and stay in Nando's and have free bottomless drinks for 4 hours and put the world to rights. And my whole life of doing that with them for the last 20 years, I've never ordered what I wanted. Never. And they'd all be having chips, and I'd be like, no, I'm on a diet. I'm trying to be good. That's stupid saying, I'm trying to be good. Until really having a baby. And then I think, do you know what? I'm not going to sit wanting the chips off everyone's plate and not have my own chips if I just want chips at Nando's. And when we go, like, once every 3 months. And it's just stupid stuff like that I've just started, you know.
Have the chips.
It's about balance. Have the chips and go on
Have
a
the
walk
chips.
tomorrow or whatever. Yeah.
No, you're so, like, literally, if we could have like some snippets of what we've learned in this, I think that is literally, be kind to yourself. The awareness is key. Like, the fact that you're now aware of that, and you're aware, like, even just knowing, hang on, take that moment. This is my hormones. Like that visual that you painted of how happy you were, how grateful you were, how everything. And then a couple of days later, it can all come crashing down. And I think so many people need to hear that, because they need to realize that, unfortunately, that's normal.
And it's important to say that that's circumstantial as well, which is interesting, because another month they might not have felt as strong because life might have been easier. But actually on my app it did, it really reminded me of the last few months. But, and you know, there's other things going on, and of course there's other reasons to be stressed and whatever. But like, from doing research about polycystic ovaries, it's made me go, it's like I can't handle those things that I should be able to handle at a different time in the month, or I would handle differently. And that's what Toby notices, is like, this wouldn't usually stress you out. So what's going on? And it might be a build-up of other stressful things. It might be tiredness. It might be, you know, something that's making me sad, or something else. But it's just quite interesting to notice that it's the flipping hormones that are making you not be able to cope with it. Like,
honestly, thank you so much for coming on, and once again speaking so candidly about this stuff. I just think it's so important. And you know, where you talked about Victoria Beckham and knowing that she had it, and you know, it's so important for so many other people who look at you in that way to understand that these things are normal. Other people are going through them. You know, for people to look at somebody like you thinking she has body dysmorphia, she's absolutely beautiful. But it must be frustrating for them to hear, but also so helpful, and for people to understand the highs and lows. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for doing the work. You know, you do the research, you do try hard, and you are investing in yourself. And I'm just so proud of you and everything that you're doing. And I think community is key as well. I know you've been using the House of Hormones new forum. Thank you so much. It's been amazing. And I just love everything that you're doing for women and women's health. And thank you so much for advocating for other women by talking about your experiences.
Right back at you. Thanks
Sending
for having
you
me.
Lots of love.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
If you enjoyed this episode today, don't forget to like and subscribe to the House of Hormones podcast. Your support really does help us reach more people and spread the word about women's health. If you want to stay connected, follow us on our social media. And here's something really important. We're on a mission to secure more funding for women's health initiatives. Sign our government petition today and help us amplify our voices for better healthcare resources and support. Together, we can make a difference. Thank you for being part of our journey. We can't wait to see you in the next episode.